Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Six Elementals interviews on my channel, the Drowned Kingdom Saga 7847. A bit of a marathon today. I've had three wonderful creative schedules that I have the honor and privilege of interviewing, and what a capstone! What a way to end off the night with none other than BookTube's beloved professor, incredible author of the Edan Trilogy, including The Way of Edan, The Prophet of Edan, and of course, Return to Edan. Incredible human being, brilliant academic, beloved booktuber, as I said, none other than Dr. Philip Chase. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm great. I feel like I should turn the tables on you here a little, PL. And this is an incredible book, everybody. Read it if you haven't yet. I have never read a fantasy that makes me feel that is as reminiscent of the classic epics, like especially for me anyway, the Aeneid. But of course, there's an Atlantis type thing going on in here as well. So, and I love, PL, that you do something in here that I think is all too rare in modern fantasy, which is you give your world a distinct voice. It feels like a different place from our own. And it's nothing wrong with people who write fantasies that use language that is more colloquial, I suppose. Some people have that preference. It's easier to read, maybe, whatever. But I love that other voice in there that you achieve successfully, that makes me feel like I'm in a different world. This is an epic world. This is a perilous world. This is a world where you can have all kinds of adventures of the type that I particularly enjoy. So I love that you do that in your series, and I intend to read further in the Drowned Kingdom saga. So
I am so honored by your kind words, Philip. Thank you so much. I'm very humbled by that. Feedback coming from an amazing writer is high praise indeed. There's some people warming up the chat already. We have Reading in the Desert, Sarah Beth, hello, PL and Philip, and chat. Hey, how's it going? Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. We also have the wonderful Jared, the fancy thinker.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jared, for coming by. Jared is awesome. Check out his channel. He's also a wonderful booktuber. I'm humbled that he's put up some dedicated reviews of some of the books in the Drowned Kingdom saga. Yeah. And he is an excellent reviewer. So check out his channel. He is amazing. And we also have the awesome Christopher Neville. Again, hello, how are you? Two cool cats and discussion. So thank you. Thank you so much. Honored for everyone who's stopping by. So, Philip, you have had, I would say, the last time we chatted, it's been probably formally on, in terms of you coming on page chewing, etc. I think this is the first time on my channel. It's nice to catch up with you. You've had some incredible success with the Edan Trilogy. It has been racking up review after review on Goodreads and Amazon, featured on a lot of booktubers' top lists. And now, of course, you've recently released the audiobook for The Way of Edan. Congratulations. And narrated by none other than the infamous, famous and infamous, I think he mentioned both somehow, from the Library of Alexandria. Good old, I think
Alexandria.
Alexandria. I think Alan.
That's hard to say.
I think Alan is, yes, it is a tongue twister. I think Alan is needs no introduction for those who are in this space. He is just an incredible person and booktuber, a brilliant person as well. I'm just curious, what made you choose specifically Alan for your audiobook narration?
That's a good question. Actually, it was Jimmy from the Fantasy Network who suggested that I ask Alan to be the narrator for the audiobook. And I thought for half a second and realized that was a brilliant idea. I think I had known already that it was something that Alan thought about doing. It was a kind of a dream of his to be an audiobook narrator. And if you know anything about Alan and you're familiar with his channel, The Library of Alexandria, you know that he is inclined to do impersonations, and that he also has some considerable acting experience. And it just seemed like, okay, yeah, I had seen Alan do a play based on the Iliad. Speaking of classics, he's into the classics big time. He's a Latin teacher, and also does a lot of drama. And I got chills watching him do that play. It was that good. His performance was that amazing, and I thought, yeah, he could do this. And it was definitely one of my best decisions because he just absolutely nailed it in the audiobook for The Way of Edan, and he's working on The Prophet of Edan now. But wow, I mean, he does so many different voices for the characters, and I feel like, so just to give an example, I mean, it feels like I'm tooting my own horn, but it's really, I'm trying to give everybody a sense of just how good Alan is at this. There was Jeremy Fee, right? So Jeremy recently did I love how Jeremy does he's another booktuber. He does these book battles, and he has loved your books, by the way, and you've done quite well in those book battles, actually, PL.
You're too, Philip. You're too humble. You won this year's. Congratulations, by the way. Those referring to the awesome Jeremy Fee on reread. On a
reread, and it was Alan's audiobook narration,
yes.
Where Jeremy thought, "Oh, okay, now this." I think it gave him a different experience of the story. I think Alan's just has done a great job channeling those characters and bringing them alive, and the fact that first of all, I'm delighted that the book could support a reread. I think that's something that was definitely a goal for me, was to be able to write books that would reward a reader on a reread. Was something that I thought, wow, if I could pull that off, that'd be great. But secondly, I do think that a lot of his enjoyment of it came from the narration, that he really just loved Alan's performance, and it helped him to appreciate the story even more, I think. So that's a testament to Alan, really, as well, that just his amazing ability to bring the characters alive with these very distinct voices, and he did it so professionally too. There's a lot of people who think, oh, I could do an audiobook, right? Or, it's really hard actually to do an audiobook. I mean, I, for a few seconds, toyed with the idea of maybe doing it myself and realized, nah, I need somebody who's really good. And Alan went about this so professionally. He consulted. It took him a long time, but that's because it was his first one. And he consulted with actual professional audiobook narrators. He worked with a sound engineer to make sure, and he had to build his own home studio to do all the recording. So it's a lot of, and buy the equipment, and it's just a lot of investment in time and money and energy. But he did everything, every step of the way, just professionally, and did such an outstanding job with this narration that I think there are a lot of people who will enjoy that performance. So yeah, I mean, it's an incredible investment, and a lot of work to do audiobooks. Have you done audiobooks yet for your books, PL? Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally concur, Philip. First of all, congratulations again on the audiobook. I only have an audiobook for the first book in my series, The Drowned Kingdom. I plan, after I finish the series, to revisit potentially doing audiobooks for the other books in the series. However, it isn't, as you said, it is quite expensive.
Yeah.
And I feel for me, I have to be confident that the sales, specifically for the audiobook, are going to justify the expense. So, but now I feel a lot more confident about that than I did in the past. After I have my very small audience that seems to be going for the book. But that is something that, again, I'm so happy for you, Alan. Of course, that is going to be the first. I'll be full disclosure. I'm not necessarily an audiobook fan per se. I don't
Nor am I.
really listen to them. However, the first audiobook I'm going to listen to in the next year or so I can finally do a proper reread or re-listen, is going to be Alan doing The Way of Edan. That
Oh,
is definitely a plan
yeah.
here, because I have wanted for so long to do a reread of your entire series. Currently, if I'll get into this topic later, but if I was going to do a ranking of my top indie science fiction fantasy series of all time, yours would figure very prominently on that list. So it's time now. I've had a bit of distance since I read the first book, that I really think that a reread is gonna give me a lot of joy. And what better way to consume it with an audiobook narrator that I so respect and admire in Alan, and that, of course, getting to revisit the joy that I felt, that wonder when I first read The Way of Edan, and I'm getting chills thinking specifically of that prologue. That prologue, one of the best prologues. I'll say it before, and I'll stand by this. One of the best prologues I've read in any science fiction and fantasy book, that really, really grabbed me right away. I remember texting people saying, "You won't believe Philip's prologue. You can't. You're not gonna believe this. It's crazy. It's off the hook." Like, yeah, it was. Yeah. So I cannot wait to do that. And Christopher says, "Yep, same. Audio is not usual." And Philip, for you, what is it? For you specifically, that you have this amazing audiobook? What is it? I know for me, I think why audiobooks have been my preferred method of consumption is I love that physical, tangible feel of a book, and just drifting through the pages. And I'm old school. I'm old too, and I think it's just my comfort level. What is it for you that perhaps you haven't gone into audiobooks in terms of reading, your reading and enjoyment?
Yeah, no, I'm not an audiobook listener, really. I tried in the past. I even tried what I thought would be a sure bet for me, which was Andy Serkis reading Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Just couldn't work for me. It's terrible. I feel guilty saying this, but the fact of the matter is I kept wanting to rewind and I would try to, okay, I need to focus on this, so I'm just going to lie down and listen and really focus, and then I fall asleep. So it was just kind of like, it just kept not working for me, and I gave up. I wouldn't call it a DNF, because I've read The Fellowship of the Ring so many times, but it was not an experience that worked out for me. And there's a great writer right there. Yeah.
Oh, there is a fantastic writer. My favorite writer of all time, the esteemed Janie Wirtz. Thanks so much, Janie, for stopping by. Janie seems to agree that paper book releases never seem to get old. There was a question up there, Philip. It was Jesse Wrights. Thanks, Jesse, for stopping by. He asked if you've ever considered making your book covers and or map available for purchase in poster form.
So you can get the map actually from Jack Shepard. So he's the map designer, also the cover designer for my books, and not the artist, but the cover designer for the Edan Trilogy. And he's done a new map for the special edition for the Broken Binding as well. So he's done a couple maps of Jormungand, and you can order the map from his website, Jack Shepard's website.
Wow.
And he goes by Tall Shepherd. So I don't know the exact URL off the top of my head, but if you were to look him up, look up Tall Shepherd or Tall Shepherd Map Maker or something like that, you probably would find his website. And you can order. He's done maps for The Bound and the Broken. He's done maps for First Law, a special edition of First Law. So and quite a few other fantasy. He's done maps, a map for Von Roycroft's Sundered Nation trilogy. So quite a few maps that you can, and I believe that most of them are available for purchase if people want to check that out. But to finish my story about the audiobooks, I'm a failed audiobook listener, but I did manage to listen to all of The Way of Edan when Alan narrated it. which I shouldn't be able to do because I know that story really well, right? I should be bored listening to that, but I was entranced. I loved his performance so much that I thought maybe I can do audiobooks. And I tried another one, and I'm still getting through it, but and rewinding a lot, but but I'm doing better this time. And it's a nonfiction book. I thought I would try a nonfiction. So yeah, I'd like to be able to listen to audiobooks because that's an easier way to read books. But I think ultimately it's going to be where it might work the best for me is stories that I'm very familiar with and don't mind missing. Like my brain will wander and then I'll come back and, and that's fine. I'll be fine with missing that sort of thing. And Jenny's heard Alan's performance as well, by the way, and her husband Don Nates, the artist, listened to it and had some very kind things to say about the Alan's performance. Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm so excited about that special edition, and should be making its way to people end of this month or beginning of February. Yeah.
That is amazing. Again, congratulations on that as well. Again, a huge year for you and the Edan Trilogy, Philip, and so well deserved. Congratulations on the audiobook and, of course, the special edition Broken Binding. I mean, Broken Binding, they have just skyrocketed in their industry. It wasn't not too short time ago. Other than Waterstones and perhaps Wraithmark Creative. You just didn't see that quality of special editions come out in the book world, but now they've taken it by storm, and it's just absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to see your special. I know it's going to be absolutely fabulous. So congratulations.
Thank you, PL. Yeah, that's. I feel very fortunate to have worked with them. It was really a joy to work with Patrick Leo, who was doing the art direction for the book, and as he's been doing for a lot of books, he's did the art direction for the Malazan books that I actually bought because I'm so excited to have these. I have a hodgepodge of mass market paperbacks and just a mess of whatever I could get when I was first reading Malazan. So I'm excited to have a decent set of Malazan books. But yeah, Patrick was great to work with. Not to mention everybody I worked with at the Broken Binding was just so sweet and so helpful and just kind and they love books. PL, isn't it great to just talk with people who love books and love stories and all that?
They are an absolutely top-notch operation. All my dealings with Broken Binding on my end with my books has been phenomenal. Of course, Matt, the fearless leader, he is just amazing. Sean, all the people that work at Broken Binding. Just an extremely well-run organization. It's no surprise when you look at their people, the caliber of people that they've invested in, that they're so successful. And with Matt's leadership, I think that the sky's the limit for them. As you know, now they are getting into the publishing business in terms of, I mean, we all know about Ryan Cahill's big contract there, which, it's just phenomenal for everyone. For Ryan, of course, huge kudos. For the industry, though, that is just, amazing. So Broken Binding they're definitely they're breaking new ground. They're going into new uncharted territory, and I think especially for independent authors, they're really doing a lot of things that are changing the game.
And I think they may fill a void that has opened up in fantasy publishing, at least from traditional publishing, in the sense that. I don't think it's a secret that traditional publishing has been less keen to publish epic fantasy per se. And I think that that's possibly a mistake. I think that there's still a great deal of love for epic fantasy. And that is definitely what Ryan Cahill's Bound and the Broken is. It's the definition of epic fantasy. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe they'll do something different with their next, whatever. I don't know. Whatever they're going to publish next, but that seems to be a signal to me that this could be a direction, a void that they could fill beautifully, because I believe that if they did seek to make them a name for themselves as publishers of epic fantasy, that they would do really, really well. But yeah, I'm not a business person though, so they'll probably make smarter decisions than I could figure out. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I again, we can't wait to see that special edition your series, Philip. Kindly, Derry, awesome Derry, check out her channel. She is an incredible person. Thanks, Derry, for stopping by, and
Derry.
so kind to the Love is Men on Book team. That's so kind. Thank you so much. Let's see, excited to receive the Broken Binding edition. We also have the wonderful John A. Douglas, author and booktuber himself.
Hello, John.
Another amazing person in the community. Hello, John. Guineas are promised to behave because Philip is a gentleman and a scholar. Yes, he is definitely that. Jenny comments, again, with that narration by Alan that he knocked it out of the park. As you said, Jenny was extremely impressed by Alan's audiobook narration, I believe. Dan. Derek says, I began my love of audiobooks with the ones I was most familiar with. It took a long time. I'm comfortable now with new to me audios. Okay. And Carl says, definitely going to check that out. I need a paper version of Malazan since I finished it on audio. We have Christopher says, Broken Binding's done some amazing work, worth every penny. I have to agree. I'd have to agree. And we're going to talk a bit about Malazan as well, hopefully in this conversation. Some definitely, we're going to be, actually, we might get to that and do kind of a circle, because I do want to circle back to your work and all things Edan at a point in this conversation. But now, Mr. Chase, your easy ride is over. As they say in the business, it's time to submit you to sharp questioning.
I'm getting scared here, Phil.
No, and again, I'm just joking. Philip, you did. Your content is phenomenal. I always wish I had more time to watch Philip's stuff. And of course, so many incredible booktubers. But when it comes to your stuff, you did a series of videos that I was absolutely enamored with. You did a series of videos, and you highlighted the best elements of some of your favorite books. Books that made you cry, books that were great with action, books that had stupendous world building. Those are some of my, I'm such a fan of your channel as it is, but those are some of my absolute favorite videos that you've put out. And I still need to rewatch some of them. So because they were just outstanding. And I think they really resonated with your audience. I'm not sure how they did in terms of the clicks and the likes, but I know with me, I was just like, wow, like it really, really resonated with me. And I think it resonated with me because, as you said, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the purpose behind it is because, it's you always see people put out rankings of books, and this is my number 1 book of all time, and this is my number 10, and people talk about the books as they do the rankings in general. They'll speak to some of the attributes as to why it's great, etc. But it's rare that I think what you did is you really shone a spotlight on why specifically these books have this element that puts them, on a different tier, and the fact that it was a lot easier to compare and contrast when it comes to why a book is subjectively great by watching your list, because and I really agreed with a lot of your picks. I love the picks, but based on all of that, there's 3 specific series. When I put those videos you made into context, there's 3 specific series that I have some questions for you, dear Dr. Fantasy, about that I would be really curious to hear your answers. And these answers may or may not become somewhat of a hot take, I predict. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So for me, this is a series. I've only read the first book, so I am certainly cannot say definitively how I feel or judge this series yet. However, my instinct tells me, based on what I've read so far, that this could become one of my, if it continues, I know it's early, it's shot calling, but this could become one of my personal favorite series of all time. That said, it is quite a dark series. I know you're much farther ahead than I am with this series, and this is R. Scott's Backer. The Darkness Has Become Before, the first series in The Prince of Nothing, and you are quite far along the Second Apocalypse series, I believe.
I'm on the last book. Yeah,
you're on the last book. So, judging by and I'm not sure this could fit into perhaps several categories. You're best to say in those videos that you made about different elements of what makes books great and why those books are some of your top 10 books for very specific elements. I predict that for me, The Darkness That Comes Before will eventually potentially wind up in my top fantasy series of all time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it will for you and why. And what I'm getting at is, can a book that, and you described it so aptly in one of your recent videos, that it's not exactly a reading pleasure per se. It's an amazing book. The author is brilliant. The prose is fantastic. It has all these amazing aspects. However, can a book that you might not even particularly enjoy per se for the reading experience make your top 10 list of all time?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it depends on your measurement. Now, a lot of people approach their favorites from the standpoint of just pure enjoyment. And so that's fair play. If that's what you want to use to measure your reading experience, then that's fine. I personally do not do that. I think enjoyment is important, but it's not the only thing I'm looking at. I actually think that books that challenge you, that make you uncomfortable, and that are skillfully written can surpass books that are just purely enjoyable, for me anyway. And that's definitely Baker's writing. I mean, he's I think when I made those videos, I'd only read the Prince of Nothing trilogy, which is the first 3 books of the Second Apocalypse series, which currently is at 7 books total. And for me, Baker gets even better in the first 2 books of the second series. So yeah, it gets even better. The guy is just prodigiously talented. He's an amazing writer. By the way, a fellow Canadian,
Yes. So, go Canada.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, PL. What is it up there? Something in the water? You've got Guy Gabriel Kay, you've got Steven Erickson and Ian Esselmont, and you've got R. Scott Baker. What gives here? What do you guys do up there?
We're just scratching the surface. There's many, many more, sir. But you've named some of the big ones in fantasy. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. But anyway, I feel that he impressed me even more in the first 2 books of Aspect Emperor. That's the second series within Second Apocalypse. There may be a 3rd series someday as well. We don't. Baker actually is. He's and I know there. By the way, there's 2 K's in his name, but he pronounces it Baker for some reason. Somebody needs to tell him it should be Bakker. It looks like a Dutch name to me, but anyway, he says Baker, so I say Baker. But anyway, he's just incredibly talented. The thing about his books is there's no hope in those books. There's no sunshine. There's human beings are disgusting, and we are selfish. And we are miserable failures that are essentially slugs that are destined and to have no actual say, although we fool ourselves every day thinking that we actually have free will. That's kind of, I may be exaggerating a tiny bit, but not a lot. We are, it's depressing for me anyway. But it's just brilliant and compelling, and he is deliberately exploring and provoking. And one of the things I like about him a lot, actually, even if I don't agree with his view of humanity all the time, he is an author who definitely questions certainty. And I don't think he ever comes down saying, this is the way it is. We absolutely do not have any free will. It's more of the thing he's exploring in the series. And I feel like if you pressed him, he probably would say he doesn't believe we have free will. But he still, I think, allows you as a reader to explore the question along with him in the story. And that's what a good writer does, So he's not hammering you on the head saying no free will, that's not what that is. But it's still, it's not uplifting, and I do look for, somebody like Jenny Wirtz, who's here in the chat. One of the reasons I love The Wars of Light and Shadow as much as I do is because I finished one of her books and I feel uplifted. I feel a sense of transcendence. I feel that this was a beautiful spiritual experience. Yes, there's peril. Yes, there's sorrow and loss and all that too, but there's hope and there's beauty There's beauty in her books, in her stories, and that to me, that's what I'm looking for. I want stories that get me through my life too, that help me feel like I have a sense of meaning in this world, and that my striving matters, right? And I get that when I read Malazan Book of the Fallen. I get that when I read Wars of Light and Shadow. I get that when I read Realm of the Elderlings.
Yes.
I don't get that when I read The Second Apocalypse. I just don't. And maybe somebody out there will disagree with me. They're brilliant. They're amazing. They're insightful. And the product of, I have no doubt, a genius in many ways. And I'm glad I'm reading them, and I will never regret reading them. But I can't say that it was an enjoyable reading experience. I don't know how you're finding it one book in, but
no, and Philip, that's an amazing answer. Thank you so much for articulating that. I totally see where you're coming from, and I agree. I was gobsmacked by the level of craft, but I felt like I needed to take a shower afterwards.
Yes.
It was that slimy feeling of when you have to face human depravity in some of its worst forms, and stare it in the face. But like you said, a really important book to read, and one that I can't get out of my head. It's so captivating, and I know this is again going to be probably end up being one of my favorite series. But yes, not necessarily a pleasurable, but I'm someone who writes things that are difficult and uncomfortable. So at the same time, this may end up being one of the most valuable series that I read, and one of those thought-provoking, and one that I treasure in terms of what it's kind of forced me to explore, and because of many aspects of my life, and including my line of work, the dark side is something that I'm familiar with. So
you've seen some stuff, yeah.
So, but yeah, that was an exceptional answer, Philip. I'm so glad to hear your take on it. And yeah, but I'm interested to see when you finish the series how this, where this places in your top series, and or your top, if you break down elements and aspects of individual series, where it places and why.
It'll probably place higher than I did when I did this before, based on my further reading in the series. But I can give an example of a series that I did not really enjoy. I liked the challenge of them. I liked the intellectual aspects of the series, and that's Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe.
Yeah.
I read that, and I was frustrated with it frequently because it didn't follow the rules, and there was a certain amount of just jarring dissonance in places and just seemingly random events that I'm totally determined. I will be rereading that series this year, actually, because when a writer does that to me, it's like I've been punched down and I want to get back up and go right back at it, because I got to figure this out, right? This Book of the New Sun thing. So I'm going to reread it this year. But it did very well in that series of videos because, Gene Wolfe is a brilliant writer. He has another extremely talented writer. And I found that this was a series that made me think, that really got me thinking. And that is something I like. It's not something I always enjoy. In the case of Book of the New Sun, I would not use the word enjoy. It was not an enjoyable. I was frustrated a lot by what I felt were these strange gaps and this random. It was almost as if these characters were on a stage, and then just randomly one character would be wheeled in for a moment and then would disappear again, and then would randomly appear. I think a lot of it has to do with the narrator. And I don't know if have you read Book of the New Sun yet?
No, I have not.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I won't say too much more because I don't want to spoil it, but it is something I would recommend trying, I guess. And I think a lot of people will probably bounce off of it. But a lot of people, it's their favorite thing in the whole world. Like they're devoted to the series. And it is very intellectually stimulating and interesting. And it's one of those series that you can read and read and read again and again and again, I think, and find new little layers and foreshadowing and connections that you didn't see the first 3 times you read it. So yeah.
Wow. Well, based on that recommendation, Philip, you know how seriously I take your recommendations. I definitely put it. Of course, now, unfortunately, a bit intimidated because obviously myself and many others in the community look to you and admire you for your intellect. And when you say it's stretching you, it's like, wow, okay. Am I will I be able to comprehend this at all? But I'm up for the challenge, so I'm definitely gonna give that a try. I just want to say a quick Laura A. Blake. Hey, Laura, thanks for coming by. Happy New Year to you both, she says. Hey, Laura, fantastic.
Same to you, Laura.
Thanks for coming by. Just a quick comment. But just see, you do like bright, vibrant covers as well. You have a great cover. Personally, I like some of the more simple covers as well. I always think of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Rowe. Really dig that cover. Jenny, who, as Philip said, has the ability to paint darkness and light side by side, and just in such a glorious fashion that you can admire both of them and appreciate both of them for the fact that each exists and each, accentuates and enhances the other. Jenny has a gift with doing that, and it's a rare gift, and that is why one of the many reasons why her Wars of Light and Shadow is my personal favorite science fiction or fantasy series of all time, and everybody knows that. That's I make no bones about that. But Jenny says books that are all dark or all light don't ring it in. If you span the full spectrum and don't shy back from either extreme, but encompass both. Very well said.
Yeah.
Yes, very well said. So, and then Derry says, yeah, those are the best ones. So the sharp question continues from Mr. Chase.
So I feel like I survived that one.
You did an amazing job with that one, as anticipated. So now we have another series that for you, I know holds special meaning. I believe it is essentially I mean, I put up a video about why I was sad about my top books of all time, and I had a lot of reasons for that I won't get into now. I encourage anyone to watch the video if you're interested. But this series is, as far as I know, this is likely your favorite series of all time. And I'm currently reading Medievalist book 5. I am totally I don't have words as to how good this is so far.
Yeah.
I came to Malazan late. Obviously, I haven't finished the series yet, but I am blown away by the craft here, right? So when it comes to Malazan, you're reading more. You continue to read more books. This has been one of your faves, if not your favorite, for some time, I would imagine. Do you see anything? Can you foresee anything that you're currently reading that could potentially displace Malazan as your top series?
Oh boy. In terms of just raw talent, Baker would be in the conversation if there were any hope at all in that series. But there's no hope in that series. So that comes down to a very personal preference. So I don't think Second Apocalypse could top Malazan. What would have a shot among the series I'm reading now is definitely Wars of Light and Shadow. That's in the conversation for me, with Malazan, Realm of the Elderlings, among the very top achievements in the fantasy genre. So I just finished book 7 actually. So I still have to read books 8 through 11, and then we shall see. But I am deeply loving this experience so far, and I am in conversations with Joanna and AP Canavan about each book in the series, and we will be discussing book 7 eventually, if not late this month, and at some point in February. But that's a series that's the easy answer for sure.
Wow.
That's got the potential. We'll see. it's definitely going to be my top 5. I can say at this point,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, it's that good. It's just a tremendous achievement so far. It's really great. Now you've finished it, so
I have, sir. And high praise for Janie Wirtz there, coming from Philip, a very discerning reader, someone whose opinion you all respect. Malazan is, I mean, I can't say enough about. I mean, Stephen Erickson's world building, the scope of his world is absolutely staggering.
That's Ian Esselmont too, because they co-created that world. Yeah,
it is absolutely staggering. I think that's the one thing that is really putting this into the upper echelon right now for me personally. The world building specifically, of course, is prose and everything else is there. There's nothing missing, right? And I think once you get used to, for me, the sheer scope and the okay, in this book, these are the characters, and you may not see most of them again for 2 or 3 books. That once I got used to that, I think I really started to dig into this series. It's not a criticism that happens. It just took some getting used to for me personally. So, but now I'm really digging. And after the last book, after House of Chains, Carson Orlong, he has vaulted to one of my top science fiction fantasy characters of all time.
All right.
He is up there now with I just put a video about John Gwynne, ranking my John Gwynne books. He's up there with Orca Skull Splitter. He's up there with Glocta from the First Law, with Lysier from Words of Light Shadow. Some of my favorite characters. Carson Orlong from Malazan is definitely up there. So
I should mention too that Lord of the Rings will always be among my favorites, and also Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea books. Those are perpetual favorites for me. They're in my bones, so to speak. So.
Well, I'm going to take you off the hot seat for one quick second. Don't think you're getting away, but this is only because Zero Zaku has a question for you. Zero Zaku has asked. Thanks for stopping by the way, Zero Zaku. Philip, what history books or books on philosophy do you think writers should read to enhance their writing?
All of them. I'm only being semi-facetious there. Yeah, I mean, it depends really on what you're trying to write. If you're trying to write a epic fantasy series that takes inspiration from a particular part of the world, then of course you want to be very familiar with that or the history from that part of the world, and probably from the philosophy, the underlying myths and religion and everything of that particular region. So. But yeah, I mean, I'll never be able to read all that I want to read. So yeah, but I being a medievalist, have read a fair amount of history, focusing especially on obviously medieval history. But I'm fascinated by. History was my first love actually in high school. It was the first subject that I genuinely loved was history actually. So I tried to read as widely as possible in history, and I just a book that blew me away that I'll throw out there as a recommendation for everybody is The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber and David Wengrow. The Dawn of Everything is the title, and it is a book that they're archaeologists / anthropologists, and this is a book that just it changes the narrative in a way that very few books do about the past, about the way we understand the past, about the way we understand the people who preceded us, because we have a tendency to make the evidence fit our narration, our narrative. And these two, I think, have taken a really great look at the evidence and have said, look, this narrative of linear progression, that we're getting smarter and better as a species, and we're less violent, and et cetera, and they've kind of upended a lot about that, and they've given, I think, a very frank look at the peoples of the past and have surprised me and have shaken up my view of the past in a very healthy way, where I feel like I have a new respect for the ancient peoples who have preceded us, that these are people who are just as intelligent as we are. In many ways, they were wiser than we are. And they the debt that we owe them is not always acknowledged. That we have this idea that somehow we're smarter and better than all these ancient people, and that's just not true. That this book has given me a real respect for various cultures of the past, and really shaken up the narrative, I think, in a really good way. So I recommend it. I think as a fantasy writer too, it helps you reimagine the possibilities of older cultures. Like, just for example, in our modern world, we tend to associate urbanization and higher concentrations of populations with hierarchy.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, there were large cities in many of these ancient cultures that most people don't even know about.
Yes.
And they were not hierarchical at all. And so this narrative about, the primitives, the hunter-gatherers being this egalitarian, and then we progressed through the agricultural revolution, which led to monarchy. They're made possible more and more, greed, I guess you could say, right? They've really questioned that story, and I think in very compelling ways. So that's a book I would recommend to everybody. It's The Dawn of Everything. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. That's an excellent point. We all, the lenses with which we look at history, we point to certain cultures and civilizations. It's first democracies, Greece, for example. There unfortunately, the more we read, we learn that there are some fallacies. When you start digging deep in terms of certain narratives, and but that's the beauty of reading and continuing to learn and become educated, and to read contrasting and even contradictory pieces of information, and opens your mind, and that's really important. But that's an excellent question, Zero Zaku.
Yes, thank you for the question.
Thanks for asking. Just quickly, some more love for Wasteland Shadow. Derry says that Jenny Wirth saw before my stroke. Sorry to hear that, Derry. I don't tucked in the Empire trilogy under her belt, obviously co-written Jenny and Remy D. Feist. I'm making Will Last Beyond Me for the last decade. Please don't work on it because I desperately want to read them. Jenny notes that the darkest fantasy that wrestles with beauty and grim. Ricardo Pinto's The Masters. Philip, have you heard about Ricardo Pinto's The Masters? No. Wow, another book, unfortunately, just like Baker, that I've only read the first book. It is, as Jenny said, she says it, she's much more articulate in saying it that provocative, stunning, bleak, and amazing. It will remind you of Baker. It is a lot shorter, at least the books that I've read, a lot shorter. They're very, very concise. The prose, the economy of prose, the prose is stunning, but it's so, in some ways, clipped and terse, but yet just beautiful, evocative. It is, it's chef's kiss. So, but yeah, it's something I highly recommend. I have to consider that series. I really need to get to that series. Continue. Christopher, also with Erickson's Malazan, along with Cook's Black Company. There's another great series. Our biggest influences, inspiration for my debut WIP series. Looking forward to reading that, Christopher. When that comes out, congratulations. Can't wait to see that. There are notes. I began calling certain series reading my scaffolding, therefore essential. Without Lord of the Rings, for example, I've never developed a love I have for other fantasy series.
It's a good way to put it.
And from one of the masters, some praise, high praise and well-deserved praise for the Edan Trilogy from Jenny Wirth, who I think most of us could consider an iconic author. Philip's Edan Trilogy stunned me for a character who wanted her life to go one way, but circumstance swerved her into another course and transcended ending. That ending, Philip, as Jenny alludes to, I will never ever get out of my mind. It is a real feat of a writer with real skill, that the you've bookended everything in the middle of your series is so amazing, but you bookended your series in unforgettable fashion. The prologue and the ending, I mean, no one's ever, when you read that series, folks, if you haven't read the Edan Trilogy, it so many aspects of the trilogy are wonderful, but the beginning and the ending will stick with you forever. So be warned.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm currently spending a lot of time with that character that Jenny just mentioned in the sequel that I'm working on right now. So that character is central to that story. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're definitely going to be delving into that a bit, hopefully, as well. Jenny mentions Jamaica High Waters, the Primal Mind. We have the awesome Timothy Wolf.
Wolf, all right.
Hey, how you doing, brother? Author and amazing person. Check out his books. Hello, happy Sunday, he says. So quickly, another Mac Garfield. Hey, how you doing? Amazing. Greetings, salutations, good folks. Though still a bit under the weather. Sorry to hear that. But great company here without the risk of contamination. Yeah, that's the beauty of online discourse. So
hope you feel better soon, Mac.
Yep, hope you feel better. So, Philip, back for your final sharp questioning on the final book and author and series. Again, someone I have not read much of, only one book. However, this author is one of the most popular and influential fantasy authors, period. Is certainly of the last 20, 30 years. So my take on this author is that this author is brilliant. Seems like a wonderful person as well, and that makes him easy to root for. Recently, if you've been on BookTube, you've seen a lot of videos that aren't necessarily complimentary of his most recent book. That is one of the most highly anticipated fantasy books out there, period, that has ever been. And that author is Brandon Sanderson. Now, I've read The Way of Kings. That's the only Brandon Sanderson book that I've read. I will be candid in my feedback. I was in my review. I rated it. I know stars. The whole star system isn't something that a lot of us are necessarily a fan of. But I felt compelled to give it a rating. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars.
That's great. Yeah.
There were some incredible aspects. I think on a storytelling level, you cannot help but appreciate the wizardry of Sanderson. However, I was very, very candid very honest about the fact that, and again, we all know that reading is subjective, but I will say that, especially Philip, that I'm a huge fan of yours, the Jenny Wirtz, the Stephen Ericksons. I wasn't a fan of his prose. The prose did not reach me and grab me. I found it much more, I hate to use the word workman-like, and perhaps didn't pull me out of the story a bit. I'm not going to belabor the issues I had with it. However, a lot of people right now, with the release of Wind and Truth, there seems to be a bit of a certainly not people that aren't as impressed as they expected to be with this part of his ongoing series. So my question to you, sir, is that I think you've read quite a bit more Sanderson than I have. I've only read the one book.
I've read 9 books by him.
Okay, so you I think that's it's a body enough of his body of work that you can have certainly a very informed opinion. As popular as Brandon Sanderson is he you believe going to wind up in your top writers of all time?
Well, no is the short answer. I would like to explain that because I have a lot of respect for what he does, and I appreciate that he has brought many people, brought many readers into fantasy. And so I love what Sanderson does for what he does, and we need people like Brandon Sanderson because he writes accessibly. He writes, you described his prose. I would say that he knows the difference himself. He has explained it very publicly, and he has these lectures on YouTube, and anyone who wants to hear him talk about, he has a different target from, say, Guy Gavriel Kay, who is, by the way, one of his favorite writers.
Yes.
He knows what great prose is, and I suspect that if he really wanted to, he could craft it would take him a lot longer though. And he has very publicly explained his idea about transparent prose, meaning
Yes.
prose that you don't have to work at as a reader to figure out. He wants to make the story as quick and accessible as possible so that the reader doesn't have to think about the sentence structure or look up a word or, that's his goal. That's his target. And it works. It's, by the way, he's going to sell more books than our favorite writers probably put together doing it.
Oh, all of us combined. Yes.
Yeah. He's not stupid. He knows exactly what he's doing. So, kudos to him. And there's a place for that. And I am glad that he exists and that he's written the books that he has. But no, he will never be one of my top authors because, like you, I'm someone who loves beautiful prose. I love falling in love with an author. I love authors who make me think. I'm reading a book right now, by the way, by Anna Smith Spark.
Oh, yes.
A Sword of Bronze and Ashes. It's my first book by her.
Oh, your first
Brilliant writer. Poetic, gorgeous prose, and weird as heck too, and in a way that I just love. This is so reminiscent of. I've read a lot of mythology, and this is very reminiscent of the Welsh Mabinogion or the Irish invasion myths or the Irish Ulster cycle, and it's just really strange and beautiful, bleak and beautiful.
Yeah, very bleak.
Yeah, I mean, she's so good, but will she appeal to a broad audience like Brandon Sanderson? My guess is, I'd love to be wrong about this, but my guess is no, probably not, because it takes a lot more, to wrestle with this story and think about and cogitate. Whereas you read, Way of Kings, you're just along for the ride, having a great time, and you're not thinking much at all. You're just zipping through it. And I think more people prefer that than prefer wrestling and cogitating and all of that. But it's good that there are different stories out there for lots of different people. So yeah. I don't know if I even answered your question. I forgot.
No, you did. It was basically, did you believe that Erikson would wind up being
Sanderson
sorry, would wind up being one of your favorite authors? And that was an excellent answer.
So no, but I respect what he does. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel the same. And I guess that leads me to almost a follow-up question, if you would indulge me. So you have, and everything I've read, I concur with you in that this is a very deliberate choice by Sanderson, essentially to write to audience, write to market, to become one of the best-selling, if not the current best-selling fantasy author out there, along with the J.K. Rowlings and the George R. R. Martins, etc. So, and I mean, who wouldn't want that? Now, that said, given the choice, if someone said to you, Philip, if you wrote your next book this way, you will sell millions and millions and millions and millions of copies, and you will achieve that sort of success and acclaim, a la Sanderson. But you would not be able to write the way you want to write. You would have to change your prose. You'd have to change your style. You would make that deliberate choice, writing to market. How do you think that choice put before you, would it be tempting? Is it tempting?
I don't think I could, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't see myself as I don't even think about, wow, if I could sell millions of copies of my books, or something like that. That's just not why I'm doing it, I guess. But I would like to have readers. Obviously, nobody writes and says, I don't want anyone to read my, unless you really don't want them, then I guess. But that's not why I do write, because I do want an audience, and I want an audience of people to connect with my story and can feel that they have been asked to explore some important questions in the course of reading that story and wrestle with the big questions, so that's my goal when I write a book, I guess, more, not just pure entertainment, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I want to stress that there is a place for that. I myself sometimes like to read a book that doesn't require a lot of thought. And I do, by the way, intend to. I said I've read 9 books by Sanderson. I've only read the first 3 Stormlight Archive books, so I do intend to read the 4th and the 5th. Yeah, I mean, I will very happily read those books. And another thing, by the way, I want to emphasize about Brandon Sanderson that I respect is that this is a guy who, as successful as he is, has done a lot, for other writers in the sense that he took on Audible in a way that none of us could have done. He is aware of other writers' struggles and seems to be a very decent human being.
Yes, he does.
So that is something I like about him a lot as well.
No, I have to agree.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I would. That is my thing. That's not where I want to be. I would love to be able to be a full-time writer, to sell enough books to do that. I'm nowhere near that at this point.
You may be on your way, my friend. I think the Edan Trilogy continues to ascend in popularity, so you never know.
I would not rule it out, but it's not something that I can really even contemplate now or even in the near future. But it's a goal. But in order to do that, you do need to sell a lot of books. You really do, and it is a balancing act, because I know that to be a successful author, a successful indie author, especially, the easier route would definitely be to pump out, at least a book a year, and if not more, and have it be a more fast-paced, action-oriented, plot-driven book, because more people want to read that kind of thing than want to read a more intellectually stimulating, kind of thing. And I think I would probably sell more copies going that route. But would I find it as satisfying? Would I find it as fulfilling? And everybody's going to find their balance there. As every author needs to figure out, okay, how important is it to me to sell more books versus how important is it to me to really explore this thing that I want to explore, to really craft something that I could be proud of. I'll go to my grave thinking, yeah, I put my everything into that, so yeah. And there's a spectrum there. It's not like either or. It's not like you have to write just entertaining fluff, or you have to write the most incredibly, intellectual story ever. There's a spectrum there, and everybody can figure out where they want to be in that spectrum. And I don't feel like I'm all the way on one side or the other, but somewhere in the middle, maybe leaning more toward hopefully the thoughtful stuff. Yeah.
Oh, well, having read your work, Philip, I would have to agree. I think you struck that fantastic balance between both. I have to say, Philip, that you did pass the Inquisition with flying colors. Now that last question wasn't a trick or a trap, but however, I would bring you back to the honor I had of being on Dear Dr. Fantasy, your 25th episode, and we talked about self-publishing versus traditional publishing.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the things you just highlighted really speak to part of the conundrum of, the dichotomy of, wanting to perhaps, or a lot of us originally aspiring perhaps to have a book deal and to be traditionally published, the validation. And again, knowing that may come with some aspects that we may not, frankly, be fond of, i.e. writing potentially to market and altering our stories to market, versus the creative freedom, the lush creative freedom of footloose and fancy free with self-pub. So I think that brings us back a bit full circle to that conversation, where now, Philip, looking back from where you were prior to the Edan Trilogy coming out, and now experiencing all this success and being able to write the books you want to write, people loving them, and you having your audience and establishing that audience, as opposed to, you could have potentially, as you said, you had an agent. It could have easily gone the other way, and you could have gotten a book deal. been picked up, and then but at the same time, you had said that the odds were that you might have had to significantly rework the Edan Trilogy to market to because perhaps that's why it wasn't picked up. So I think at the end of the day, I can say from the outside looking in at how much people love the Edan Trilogy, including myself, how well it's been received, the critical praise, etc. I think things turned out all right for you.
I'm very fulfilled, PL. I'm very grateful for kind people like you who have read the trilogy. You and Jenny Wirtz and other people in the chat have been so. I'm just incredibly grateful that A, that anyone would even read the books, and B, that many people seem to resonate with the story. I believe very firmly that we self-publishing authors can achieve the same heights that people who are getting their books published through traditional publishers can. Today, that is the case. The only thing we're up against is this lingering prejudice that a lot of people seem to have. They don't either understand or they just haven't heard that you can, as a self-published author, get the very best editing. You can hire. I will shout to the universe that I have the best possible developmental editor that anyone could have.
Your nemesis. Your nemesis.
Nemesis. I have to give that to him. He is a brilliant human being, and his understanding of storycraft is without peer. He is just really, really good at what he does. There is no traditionally published author who has a better developmental editor than I have, okay? And there are others out there too. There are plenty of people out there who are really great, not only developmental editors, but also copy editors, artists, cover designers, map makers, you name it. We self-published authors have access to the same level of talent that traditionally published authors have. All we're up against is the marketing side of things, because we don't have the money that a publishing house has. And they have made these deals with bookstores where the bookstores will only take traditionally published books. So we're up against that prejudice. And if we can chip away at that and get more and more people to realize that there are self-published books out there that can compete with the very best traditionally published books. Now, I will grant you, there are a lot of people writing self-published books that could do with a lot more help. And sometimes it's a matter of they cannot afford a developmental editor or a copy editor or an artist or, et cetera, et cetera. That I understand. I don't want to come across as callous and elitist or anything like that. But that said, if you can afford as a self-published author to get that help, to get that feedback as much as you can, that is imperative to me, because that's what's happening for the authors, by the way, who are going through the traditional publishers. They're getting the editing help. They're getting the developmental editing. They're getting the copy editing. They're getting the publisher takes care of all the stuff that the self-published author has to take care of on their own. But we can do it. We can compete at the very top level if we're willing to put in the effort, if we're willing to put in the work, and we're willing to make the financial sacrifice, if we can afford the financial sacrifice of really investing in that book and giving it the best possible cover with a really talented artist and cover designer and all of that. We can do it, and that's all we have to do is get the word out to people that self-publishing is not only competitive with traditional publishing, but it's also a place where there's more creativity these days. There's more creative freedom. There's less trend chasing in self-publishing than in traditional publishing. Now, I'm not saying, I hope I don't sound mean here, because there are lots of great people working in traditional publishing. They want great stories to be out in the world too. But I think they're operating under a lot of restrictions, whereas self-published authors are not. I think we're doing it. We're changing it, the landscape of publishing. It's just that we got to get more and more people to understand that it's now possible for self-published authors to compete at this highest levels, to write the very best stories, as long as they're willing to and able to invest in that. I really believe that. And that's what we got to do. We got to somehow get people to understand that, and people are reluctant to try self-publishing, especially if you try a few and then they're very raw and there's a lot of errors and that kind of thing. You might say, well, I don't think self-published authors are very good. The way I look at it is you're going to find a spectrum again. I like my spectrums, I guess. But you're going to find a spectrum. If you were to take 100 traditionally published books, take 100 self-published books, you'd find that the very highest level books on both, you'd have self-published authors achieving that level as well as traditionally published. You would probably find more at the bottom end of the spectrum on the self-published side than on the traditional, because every traditionally published authors has gone through a process of editing, and they've been, some awful books make it through. I will grant you that, but they have at least gone through a minimal level of editing, and they've gotten plenty of help. And it's true. Jenny Wirtz just left a comment. I'm willing to bet you that most traditionally published books that I read have more typos and errors, grammatical and otherwise, than my books do. I'm actually willing to bet that. I'm not saying my books are error-free, but I'm willing to bet that, and many well-known authors, you will find mistakes. So it's really the case. Absolutely. Zach Argyle,
yes,
Red Light series, and Bookborn is they've done a lot to help self-published authors get the money to maybe fund an audiobook, which is incredibly expensive, or to hire a wonderful artist or developmental editor or what have you. So that's a really great effort that they've made.
Special shout out to Zach Argyle, a fantastic indie author in his own right, and a very popular one, a very successful one, and Hillary Bookborn, who is a wonderful, phenomenal booktuber with a large audience and following. Their philanthropic efforts to assist indie authors is nothing short of miraculous. They are wonderful people. What they do for the community is just, it is just absolutely phenomenal. Check out that grant and everything that they do. Big shout out to Jenny for making that comment. I have to concur about the editing, but overall, if any of you, there's many reasons why we love Philip Chase, but if any of you aspiring self-published fantasy authors that were feeling discouraged about certain things, about being self-published, if you needed a battle cry, if you needed a battle speech and a rallying cry, you just got it courtesy of Dear Dr. Fantasy himself, who is a self-published author.
Absolutely, and I'm proud of it. And one final point. We have the creative freedom the self-published authors do. And the hardest part is marketing, but when you're able to do it, guess what? Instead of taking maybe 7% of each sale, you're getting a much higher percentage being a self-published author. So that is a tremendous point as well. And even when you get your 7%, you have to give 15% of that to your agent, right? They've earned it by getting you the deal, but that means you're not making very much on a sale. Most of it's going to the publisher. So as a self-published author, now don't be fooled by Amazon and et cetera, because you don't actually make 60% of the sale when you self-publish through Amazon's KDP, but you still make way more than like 7 or 10%, which is what I think most traditionally published authors will get. So there's a big incentive there to go the self-published route, in my opinion, because the thing is, PL, as you know very well, traditionally published authors have to hustle the same way we self-published authors do. The vast majority of them get almost no support from their publishers. It's the author who's doing all the marketing now. So why on earth would you let them take all your money when you're doing all the work and you're doing all the marketing and everything else? That's a consideration. That traditional publishers are doing really well by you as an author if your name is Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. But for the 99.9% of the rest of them, you're on your own, essentially. You're on your own. And that's the same situation you're going to be in as a self-published author. So why consider at least doing the self-published route? Because you're not going to get much marketing help from your publisher if you go traditional.
Those are some exceptional points, Philip. And again, a wonderful rallying cry and encouragement for those of you who are in the self-publishing milieu or are wondering or feeling perhaps, that validation. I need that validation because, I just want to get a book deal because it will make me seem more credible, more believable as an author. Not true. There are many advantages to being a traditionally published author. However, take a long, hard look at Philip as is basically inferring that being a self-published author can be a very, very viable way of being published and very rewarding. So that was amazing, Philip. Like I said, if you ever want to rallying cry about being self-published, that you just got your marching orders from Dr. Fancy. I want to quickly put up a few comments. Jenny is so incredibly kind. Jenny says, P.L. Story is the king of flawed character that you just have to root for infuriating and heroic at the same time with Blash. Thank you, Jenny. Again,
true.
Praise from my favorite author is high praise indeed. Timothy Wolf, who's also read the series, says he agrees with Jenny. I love reading author, but wouldn't grab a beer with him. Yeah.
You might want to hit him with your beer instead. Yeah.
Yeah. Derek says, entry-level writers in any genre are incredibly valuable. I would count Sandro as one, and that's probably why his books have none of my buzzwords and I have no attraction to his work. That's an interesting take. Very, very interesting take, Derry. I will go back quickly to Shad, who says, hey, PL and Philip. I want to quickly get in this question from Zero Zaku 1. Philip, you've read a lot of prose. Who are some of the undermentioned authors with fantastic prose?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Undermentioned. Susanna Clarke is brilliant and not prolific. And again, I think that's not an accident. She is a great example of an author who takes her time with her writing. And she also had, I think, an ailment in her case, too, that probably prevented her from writing more than she has. But Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, right? Yeah. I almost said doctor. Fantastic book. Piranesi, amazing, and she also has a short story collection that's out that most people don't know about, but she's one. I mean, I just talked about Anna Smith Spark. Wow.
Yeah. Well, she is up there. Yeah.
Yeah. An author who doesn't get talked about much these days that I absolutely adored when I was younger, and I think maybe had more influence on my prose than I even realized, is Mary Stewart. Mary Stewart, the author of the Merlin books, the Arthurian books. Beautiful prose. Go and look at her prose. It's quite gorgeous. And so, yeah, I don't hear many people talking about her these days. Who else? Well, we already talked about my standard list of great prose in fantasy includes Johnny Wirtz, Steven Erikson, Robin Hobb. They're among the very best, in my opinion. I love Tolkien's prose. I know not everyone does, but I love it. Those are Ursula Le Guin, of course. So many greats. But under those who are not discussed enough. Guy Gabriel Kay, of course. He gets a lot of attention for his prose, but still, I knew Jenny would know Mary Stewart, of course.
Yes, of course. Quickly, Shad says, I think Philip Stahl could be really commercially successful. Yep, I think Philip strikes that great balance between lovely, lyrical prose at times poetic and accessibility. And I agree. I think it could be very much commercially successful, and it has been to a certain degree for sure already. So I think Shad's talking in the context of if you were traditionally published. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Of
That's
course,
very
Chad,
kind.
but yeah, I would totally agree. I think, and Jenny, as Philip said, put up Mary Stuart and Mary Renault deserve a renaissance. So that said, Clark Ashton Smith, been forgotten today, fantastic.
Tad Williams is another one who
Yes. Yes, Chad's reading Anna Smith, Spark at the Moment. Oh, the wonderful Andrew Wizardly reads, another amazing human being and fantastic
There he is.
How are you doing? Thanks for stopping by. He mentioned C.S. Friedman.
And he also mentioned Daniel Abraham, and I will definitely second him on that. I've only read Long Price Quartet, but it was gorgeous, beautiful stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like good stuff. Mark Scarfield's putting in a vote for GGK. One who now I think he's gonna wind up on my top fave list one day, because the more I read from him, the more I'm just astounded.
Mac he's too modest to say it, but he is a GGK scholar. I think we all know that Mac is very well read.
Oh yes, he's extremely. When he comments in a video and he puts up what he's reading or what he has read or play, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel pretty inadequate. Wow.
Yeah. He's very well read. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him in Norway last summer. Yeah.
Oh wow, that must have been a real pleasure. Yeah.
Oh, it was great. It was really great to meet the legend Mick Scarfield in person. But he is incredibly knowledgeable, more knowledgeable probably than any booktuber, honestly, about GGK. So.
Wow, maybe Mac needs to get a channel going and he can devote it to GGK, predominantly content. Jenny also puts up Carol Berg, Barbara Hamley, Catherine Valenti Stella, Prose. And speaking of experts, Derry, all things Robin Hobb, this is the booktuber that you definitely want to consult. Derry is considered an expert in Hobb. She mentioned Susanna Clark, someone else I really want to read. Based on a single chapter, I managed to read it Nessie before the library went about gorgeous. So Philip, you have been so incredibly generous with your time. I would love to keep you here all day and just, talk to you and listen to you. And, I always, when I knew you were coming on, it's just one of those things where honestly, I'm not saying this is not facetious. You make my day brighter. I look forward to being in your presence. You are beloved on BookTube. It is not just that you're so well respected for your intellect and how incredibly insightful you are and everything you do in the community. You are beloved, sir. And thank you for being. And congratulations again on things such as the Broken Binding Special Edition, and of course the audiobook for The Way of Edan. We're looking forward to seeing and hearing more about you and your writing. But quickly, just before we sign off, a few more things to sign off with. But the last kind of main question, just want to get a little taste of, or if you can provide some insight with what you're working on now, what might be coming out in the future from Dr. Philip Chase in terms of your writing.
Well, I am working on a sequel to the Edan Trilogy, and it's titled While Darkness Gathers. And
I love that title.
It is about 16 years after the trilogy ends. And some of the characters who are alive at the end of the trilogy will be appearing in the little sequel. Once I'm done with that, I do anticipate that will be out before mid-year. I intend to go back and do some prequels, going back into the history of Jormungand, before the trilogy. Maybe recent history in terms of some of the characters, some of the older characters when they were young, maybe an Urd book. I may go further back in time and do some, delving into... I'd want to I would not do a Silmarillion type thing. That's not what I want to do. I want to find those poignant moments that will make great stories and allow me to portray some vivid characters that people will want to read about. But at the same time, maybe filling in some important moments in the history of this continent that I've been living in half the time for the last 20 years. This imaginary continent. So
Wow. Well, that's got, I think, all of us really excited. I cannot wait to read it. Of course, Philip, I plan to read absolutely everything that you write. Again, wishing you continued success in your exceptionally popular YouTube channel and with your exceptionally popular fantasy series that is only growing in acclaim. Again, congratulations on everything. Can't wait to talk to you next time. Best of luck in work and the academic career. Hope you're enjoying the break away from work. Best of luck to you and the new year, and of course, continued good health and success for all you and your family. And this has been a real delight and a treasure talking to you.
Well, thank you, PL. You are a gift to this community, and it's just a privilege to have the chance to talk with you. And I can't wait to get further in your wonderful series as well. Everybody, if you have not yet read A Drowned Kingdom, what are you doing? Give it a try. It's just fantastic epic fantasy, complex central character, really epic stuff. And I mean epic. That word gets thrown around a lot. This is the real thing. This is real epic. So give it a try. Thank you so much, PL, and everybody in the chat as well. It was great to see you all, and I'll be seeing you all around on BookTube.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody who came in the chat. Everyone who will watch the replay. You're what makes this type of long form content incredible. Just before I let you go, Philip, for those who are living under a rock, perhaps that don't know, where can we find you in all the social media spaces you occupy, your YouTube channel, etc., Twitter, X, and where can we buy your incredible books, including the Edan Trilogy?
Yes. So here on YouTube, Philip Chase. I'm on Twitter. It's Philip Chase 90 and Bluesky as Philip Chase 90. Someday I'll grow up and go on Instagram as well. And you can find the books at Amazon is an easy place, but also any online bookseller, Barnes and Noble, what have you. They'll be carrying it as well. The physical book, at least. The ebook you can only get through Amazon, but the physical book you can get at any bookstore that is willing to order it, but it is available directly through like Barnes and Noble or something like that. I think that covered it all. I hope so.
Yeah, you did a great job. And quickly for me, P.L. Stewart, John Kim Saga 74/7, 6 Elemental Interviews, where I interview marvelous people such as Philip. That again, this has made my day. The books, plstewart.com. 4 books out now in the series. The 5th one, A Pack of Wolves, coming in the spring of 2025. Reviews Before You Go blog. Thank you, Philip, led by the wonderful Beth Tabler, and on Goodreads, of course. So once again, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming out to see Dr. Philip Chase, Dear Dr. Fantasy, beloved member of the community and an incredible writer. And we're looking forward to chatting him again. Hopefully he will do me the honor of coming back to my channel.
Delighted to.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.